Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 11 NFL Power Poll. Going through the tiers. I got something fun cooked up for the bottom end team because we don't need to really discuss them too much, but something fun coming at you from theathletic.com. It is Jake Ciely. Sir, not a lot of change in the power rankings this week, despite a weird week in football.
Yeah, despite a weird week, and we almost had a forced change, like you would have to have the debate, but probably not much movement, I would say, outside. And did you knock the Lions out of tier one because of what happened?
No, let's get to tier one. No, I didn't.
Okay.
I still have Kansas City and Detroit in number one. In fact, I almost moved the Ravens up to tier number one as well to go along with them. But listen, even if the Lions had lost this game, I wouldn't have moved them out of tier one. Like, everyone gets to have a bad game. Yeah, look, Kansas City's undefeated, yet they really haven't played the one true game I felt like they played really well was the San Francisco game. They got up for that. It was a big opponent in a big spot, and I'll see what they do against the Bills this week, but I almost feel like they should throw one of these games and lose at some point.
I thought yesterday was going to be the game after last year. Were they 6-1 and 7-1, and then they lost to the Broncos? That was actually in Denver, so I thought it was going to happen again. And yeah, you have the whole. They showed the highlights at the end of that game with Isaiah Likely just stepping barely out of bounds, and then the other game, I forget which one it was, but just how they've kind of gotten lucky. And we've talked about a lot this on the show. I thought maybe with 2 losses you would knock Detroit out of there. Again, it's a long time ago. I kind of think I'm with you in the fact that Detroit should be in the top tier because I think of it like kind of like college football. Like, okay, sure, somebody has a loss or a second loss, but we still know they should be in the college football playoff type of situation. We still know the Lions. Don't they have still, even with yesterday's game almost losing and then the loss to the Buccaneers, don't they still have like the best point differential by like a decent chunk and like much better than the Chiefs?
Yeah, it is much better than the Chiefs. Let's see. The best point differential in the NFL is the Lions at 113. Second is the Bills at 97.
That's actually even better than I thought it was. Wow, yeah. So
yeah, the Chargers actually have a better point differential than the Chiefs do.
Well, that's because they just don't let anybody score.
/ they only play the absolute garbage of the NFL.
Now I'm pulling it up. They have to have the fewest points allowed. Oh, yeah. They have the fewest points allowed by 118. The next closest is the Steelers at 146.
I know. It's really weird, though. I guess we can get into this now. That when you take a look at like DVOA or even some of the advanced defense rankings, like the Chargers rate out at number one, and that makes sense, as you just mentioned. They've given up the fewest points in the league, but every time they've played like a step up in class, they lose the game. Like, they beat the Raiders, the Panthers, the Broncos, the Saints, the Browns, and the Titans, and lost to the Cardinals, the Chiefs, and the Steelers. Like, all the 3 like teams that you would identify as being good, like when we go through the power poll, they lost to them. So I really don't know where they sit. I think that they will be able to play teams close, but they can only beat the dregs of the NFL. Like, the Broncos is their best win.
Yeah, and we're about to find out who the real Chargers are because their next 4 games are going to be telling. I was doing this on the recap show. Their next 4 games, to pull it up just to make sure I had it right, it's the Bengals at home, and then you get Ravens at home, and then you head to Atlanta and Kansas City for their next 4 games. So Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs are the next 4. We're going to know. If they're 3-1, hell, yeah, legit contender. If they're 1-3, we kind of thought the Chargers are who they thought they were, kind of like an okay team going forward, but not really a much of an even playoff contender. You're right about they've kind of beat who they have to beat. Some of the arguments you've made before for other teams, like, hey, you beat who you were supposed to beat, but do a little bit more. At least all their losses, let me go back to it real quick. I feel like all their losses are just, they scored 10, 10, and 15, but they never gave up more than 20, even to the Steelers and Chiefs. So it's like they just can't score against good teams, which is the weird thing. Like, the defense holds up. It's just they can't score against them.
That kind of cuts both ways, though, because I do think, and that's, I mean, Herbert was hurt. He got hurt against the Steelers, and he was hurt during the Kansas City game as well. So maybe that was a part of it. But this is a lot like the Jets defense last year, where it rated out as number 1 in the league, but teams constantly going against them knew they didn't have to do anything offensively because Zach Wilson was their quarterback. I guess there's not that much change from Aaron Rodgers as we saw on Sunday too, but I think that cuts both ways sometimes, where teams don't try to go. it's not that teams aren't trying to score points. It's just their game plan is a little bit different. They can slow the game down knowing they don't need as many points to beat you if you're not keeping up offensively with them. That if the Chargers were putting up 25 points in that game, I would almost guarantee the other teams would score more too.
For the ones we talked about?
Yeah.
I say I said Arizona. Those two in the row. I say Arizona. It depends on which Arizona. Honestly, Arizona and the Chargers, I think, are in a similar playing field. Just the fact that the Arizona's got the little bit better offense that shows up at times and the worse defense, lesser defense.
Well, let's move to tier 2 then, because I only have 2 teams on this tier. It's Baltimore and Buffalo. Obviously, Baltimore killed Buffalo earlier this season, so I'm still giving them the tick in that box. But the Bills actually have a decent... Cuss doesn't believe me, and he cursed poor Jared Goff last night on the Sunday show. Just, how could Jared Goff's a top 5 quarterback? You would love to have Jared Goff. He should be the MVP. 5 picks later, they do get the win, which I think is actually very good for them, that they had to overcome some adversity and Goff playing like crap. Like the Goff that I saw in that game on Sunday night was the Goff that I expected to see against Minnesota earlier this season. That once you ratchet up the pressure just a little bit and get him off the spot, he's really not any good.
Well, I'm not apologizing for that game at all, but I will say the Goff in the second half
was better.
He adjusted. It was much better. I bring it up with the whole Sam Darnold against them earlier this year, is that the Lions were waxing them in the first half under pressure, couldn't do anything. And then Sam Darnold played a much better second half. Now, of course, week 10, the old Sam Darnold showed up quite a bit, but Jared Goff looked awful in the first half and really good in the second. And it wasn't much difference defense that he was facing, just a lot of the zone. He just started picking apart. Now, does that go back to something we talked about all the way with the Rams, and that Sean McVay was in his headset until it clicked off and telling him what to do and maybe something at halftime, and it's just the entire offense and Ben Johnson and the coaches all being like, look, dude, you're not seeing what you need to do. And maybe that's just Jared Goff. Jared Goff, like when he knows what to do, he executes it. But if you put it on him, maybe it's just this is who he is. This is always who he's going to be, which is why I think he's concerning long term, which is why I'm hesitant to put the Lions up there, just because if you're going to put it on his shoulders. But to your point about tier 2, I know I don't disagree with either of the teams, but I'm still going to keep making the case that the Eagles deserve to be here. Just it's the argument that they're not playing their best ball. Devonta Smith did nothing yesterday, and they waxed the team. And I know the Cowboys are not the Cowboys without Dak Prescott, but they're beating everybody they should, and other teams, including playoff teams, and their 2 losses aren't the worst. I would just think that you put them on the field with the Lions or the Bills or the Ravens, not maybe the Chiefs as of today, and I still think that they are in contention for winning those games. I just think the Buccaneers have a blueprint on how to beat the Eagles, which is weird that everybody doesn't try to do the same thing.
Maybe other teams can't do the same thing, because even offensively,
that's possible.
I will get to the case of the Bucs in a second because I bumped them down, but I actually do kind of like their prospects coming out of the bye week to make the playoffs and potentially even run off enough of a streak to win the division. They're 9-1 to win the South. I get that they're 2.5 games back, but their schedule is a cupcake the rest of the season. Like they should be at least 5-point favorites in 6 of their 7 final games.
I'm not sure. Do they have even a game where they shouldn't win the rest of the way?
Chargers.
I was looking yesterday. Chargers? Is it in LA? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter where it is. Like I just think that's 2 teams that do diametrically opposed things. They could most definitely beat the Chargers, but that game's a coin flip in my mind.
And that's certainly fair. Yeah, because I was looking at that once they get Mike Evans, hopefully, out of the bye, and Jalen McMillan is healthy but actually plays, that they have something more. But, I mean, it's been kind of working so far. And to be that competitive against the 49ers with all the issues they have at wide receiver, I think was actually a testament to their team.
I feel like that was a score indication of how competitive that game was, because to watch that game, it didn't feel competitive at all. That San Francisco was just trouncing them the entire time.
So I think the offense felt that way. The 49ers offense, like the 49ers offense had no problems. I felt like the Buccaneers, when they were on offense, actually felt like they could contend. And maybe the 49ers defense is just not top notch, but I felt being able to do what they did on offense with no wide receivers, that's what I was talking about. They couldn't stop any. The problem, this is the Buccaneers' downfall this year, is their defense can't stop anybody, especially in the pass.
No, well, it's weird to like watch drive by drive. Like there was a lot of extended drives for the Buccaneers. I think they had 3 of them where they marched down the length of the field. It was either that or it was 3 and out. It was really bizarre. Like it was either like they indicated a drive, okay, we're going to run our good plays on this drive and to go down and score some points. We're just going to punt the other ones away.
This is a garbage plays. If they hit, they don't work. That's fine. We'll just save them for a good drive.
Basically, and don't forget, San Francisco missed 3 field goals in the game too. Makeable field goals.
I know. I love it. That was fun.
Yeah, it is. As Cuss pointed out, it's something every single week with them that just seems to go wrong, which does, I guess we can talk about San Francisco in a second. I did want to talk about Buffalo. They're at Kansas City this week. They beat Kansas City. They have a shot at the 1 seed, and that's really what this game is about, isn't it?
I think that's really because you'll still be a game behind, but now you hold the tiebreak.
Yeah,
and
Kansas City might go undefeated, but there's also a chance they lose 4 games too with the way that they're playing.
Which, by the way, talking about that is, I'm sure Vegas is cleaning up, as you love to bring up every single year. Anytime we get to this point where a team is undefeated, people just love to start betting on the undefeated teams. Don't do it. Don't.
I don't know. I actually don't know what the odds are, but I think enough people view this Kansas City team as flawed that the odds of them going undefeated would probably be like way higher than a normal type team that was right here, despite being the fact that they're Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, that there might be decent value on it.
I'm trying to pull it up, but I got the camera in the way, so I'm trying to. What are the odds? Plus 750, but that was last week. That was week 10.
Plus 750 to go undefeated?
Yeah.
Oh, those are horrible odds.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah,
like people bet it.
I thought it'd be like 30 to 1 or something.
No, that's 4 days ago, so that's before they won this week.
And should have lost. What do they do this week to beat the Bills in the last second? The Bills score, and then they decide to go. The Bills are up 1 after the 6, and they decide to go for 2. And then there's a pick on the 2-pointer, and they return that for the 1-point win. Is that in the cards?
Oh no, I mean, I was gonna say more if maybe there's no Dalton Kincaid, that they use too much Dawson Knox and he gets clocked and loses the fumble, and they run it back for the winning touchdown.
Yeah, I thought there could be a Deshaun Jackson element in play where they return a punt with 0 seconds left for the win.
Well, you got to bring that up. That's back when I used to actually care about the Giants.
Well, that was one of the most. That was a America's Game of the Week, I believe. That was a really fun game.
It was. And outside looking in, now that I've been separated from my Giants fandom, is actually I can look back and be like, yeah, that was fun. I thought you were going to go to Deshaun Jackson the other way. Is that like maybe the Chiefs are winning and Xavier Worthy gets all the way down to the 1 and lets the ball go right before he enters the end zone.
Xavier Worthy would have to catch the ball before dropping it, and that's a severe difficulty for him at this point.
I had that debate, and Dane agreed with me on Sirius XM. It's like, I just don't get why people wanted to keep putting him inside the top 35 ranks every single week. Like, it happened in week 1. It was a rushing, and it still was like 3 touches. And ever since week 1, the guy finished negative points last week. And like, people are still like, oh, top 35. Like, he doesn't do anything.
But when you want, like, when he finished with negative points, he should have had a touchdown on the first drive of this game. Mahomes actually had a terrible throw to him for an easy touchdown in this game. Like, you see the
one that went out of bounds.
Yeah, like the opportunity is there for him. He him and Mahomes aren't on the same page.
Which happens to almost every single rookie wide receiver that plays with Mahomes. Like, can we stop doing this? We'll talk about him next year.
Quick underdog update for Monday Night Football. I have Cup over fantasy points of 13.5 and A-Chain to score a touchdown. That pays 3.15 to 1. Now, when I did that earlier, that's all. If you're listening to the audio version, the full breakdown of that is at the end of this episode. It's on a separate video on Mayo Media Network. So smash the like and sub to the channel while you're here. But do you like those?
I think we're talking full PPR?
Half point.
Half on underdog? Okay.
7
as you can see.
7 for 100
not
gets
my
them
area.
A touchdown gets them there.
Oh, the touch. That's what I was going to say. I hopefully get the touchdown. I like the line. It just, my biggest concern has to actually do with Tyreek Hill playing, and that the Dolphins offense doesn't do enough to force the Rams to do enough. That's my only concern. Like, this turns into a Kyron 23 touch, 20 rush type of game. And that's all. That Matthew Stafford only throws for like 220 and a touchdown. That's my only concern.
Tyreek is currently on the board at 72.5 receiving yards, despite the fact that we don't know whether or not he's going to play in this game. And they refuse to post Waddle like lines. They're only posting the hill lines because they just don't know. They don't want to get caught with their pants down on. And I understand where they're coming from. I would just like to see it come out. So if you use code Mayo right now at Underdog, you get a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. You can go A-Chain, Cup, Hires, and if you use code Mayo when you're a first timer, you'll also get a Matthew Stafford free pick in this game to turn it into 6.5 to 1, and that one's a guaranteed winner. And Jake, I've been on fire on Underdog the past 2 weeks. I'm up like 10 grand. It's awesome.
I remember the Commanders one that you smashed as soon as they announced Brian Robertson out back in week 9.
Yeah, and I hit my big play on Munich. I hit my big play, just the 3-1. Like the 8-legger ones don't really ever come through, so that's disappointing. But yeah, when you're taking 100 to 1 shots on things, it's most likely not going to hit. But just piling up,
threw me off.
But like piling up these 6 to 1s, 10 to 1s, just they print money.
Yeah, people get too greedy when they go past that, though. But yeah, that's the kind of the nice where, I told you about the trip that I went on that one time. That nice range of the 6 to 8 to 1s. You threw me off with the Munich thing. I thought at first I was like, "Is he talking soccer?"
No.
Because I just
the funny thing was like it was a 3-legger and it was Coker and Hyatt, and they both hit their overs within like 2 minutes into that game. And then it was Tyrone Tracy higher rushing yards. And I was like, oh no, they're going to get behind. They're not
you're sweating that out.
I was sweating it until the end of the first half. And they gave him like 5 carries in a row before they did that ridiculous flea flicker thing that Daniel Jones got sacked on. And just, he was gashing them. It was like 5 yards, 8 yards, 13 yards, 5 yards. Like, just keep doing that. That's working.
It was working because that actually works against the Panthers. And if there was any other quarterback, maybe they actually win that game. The fact that Daniel Jones didn't throw the ball on that, good. Like, what the hell did he double pump for?
Okay, there were
two was it like I have too many options that are wide open to throw to? I don't know what to do.
There were 2 instances yesterday, and I don't quite understand it. Like the Ertz thing at the end of the Commanders game where he didn't get the first down and didn't run past the sticks, like that's somewhat forgivable. I think it was 3rd and 13. And I thought that he got it anyway. I mean, you can make a case either way. The spot was bad, the initial spot, but even on review, you really couldn't tell. Like you'd want him to be another yard deeper in order to fit that ball in, but that's a different situation. The Giants, on the play where they threw it to Tracy and it got intercepted, I mean, Tracy should have caught it. That it's not necessarily on Daniel Jones, but it's 3rd and 7, and you're throwing to your running back who's clearly covered, like at the line of scrimmage. Just fucking throw it away at that point or take off running. Like, what are you doing?
The same thing the Giants have done since Eli Manning and won those Super Bowls is like the old Jason Garrett and who's the mook around at like that same time with the 3 different colored hair. He had the hair, then the goatee was a different color than the beard and the mustache and what that guy. Come on,
receiver.
The guy, he wore the slick back. No, the coach that used to be for the Giants. That was after in between the Garrett when he had like this slick back hair was like dark brown and his mustache was like light brown and then his goatee was like grayish brown. Like it was 3 different colors. He looked like an idiot. He was an idiot. Anyway, his point, like, it was 3rd and 9, and you'd be like, oh, a 4-yard screen, or dump it off to the running back, or have the tight end run across the middle on a 5-yard route. Like, that was – who the hell was the coach? You would know it as soon as I said it. Like, Giants.
Head coach or OC?
Head coach. The history of the head coaches. I'm pulling it up right now. There's Brian Dable. I don't want Brian Dable.
Was it Joe Brady?
No. Was not Joe Brady.
No. Anyway, the Falcons did the same thing.
Ben McAdoo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about Ben McAdoo. It's like he never existed to begin with. But Atlanta did the same thing against the Saints. They were 4th and 4, and they're like, let's throw a 2-yard pass. What are you guys doing?
That, and unfortunately, Atlanta's got a bad one next week, don't they?
They're at Denver.
Yeah, at Denver. Not a good rebound spot.
No, but that's a game they should. If Atlanta is actually a serious team, that's a game they have to win.
They should win. They should, yeah.
But that's why I like the Bucks at 9 to 1 to still win that division, just because I think that Atlanta could lose some of these stupid games.
As of right now, the way that they've been playing, and Kirk Cousins looks good one week and then terrible the next. And honestly, they got Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. They finish off real easy. But
they do.
They're in play.
Commanders is a tough game, and they're a part of Tier 3, even with their loss.
I know. I was talking about the other 3.
Yeah, I go Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Washington, San Francisco, Houston, the Chargers, and Green Bay. I think I bumped Houston to number I think I bumped Houston behind Green Bay, so they're actually at the bottom of this tier. I just think they're a different team when Nico plays, and I want to give them the benefit of of the doubt. But every team in that division has a negative point differential now after their loss Monday or Sunday night.
So you're talking about the Texans?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're -2 now. Just pulled that up. So I gotta tell you, like, I know Nico Collins is supposed to be back, and we've talked at length, and I've put it in the articles on my podcast that they're completely different with Nico Collins. But I don't think he's just going to magically fix everything just because the pressure's still there on CJ Stroud. I think it's going to help. Their defense played well for most of that game. Just my feeling is as bad as they played for the majority of their game and how bad the quarterback played for the majority of that game, I feel like if you're going to put the Texans here, you have to put the Vikings here.
No, absolutely not. Because the difference between Stroud and Darnold is night and day. And I know it didn't look like that on Sunday night, but Darnold has been the Darnold that we remember the last 3 weeks. And they are a house of cards. And it's all coming down soon.
They're scheduled, and they're. I mean,
that's fine. I don't care about their schedule. They can beat the crap out of the Jacksonvilles of the world and all these crappy teams. Like, they're the team that I want to bet against in the first round of the playoffs now. Even if it's fucking Atlanta, okay. I'd much rather have Atlanta.
You really think that the Texans, as of currently constructive, are a good bet in the first round as well?
No, I don't. But I just think
this isn't so much about putting the Vikings here as taking the Texans out.
Maybe so. Okay, maybe you can bump the Texans down, but I'm willing to give them the benefit that they have a chance to get better. We're seeing fully operational Minnesota right now, and Sam Darnold is just destroying them.
They still won.
They beat Jacksonville has a quarterback who had like 30 yards.
I know. That was so miserable.
Yeah, it's like
Mac Jones.
It's like giving Philadelphia a ton of credit for beating Cooper Rush and Trey Lance.
No, but again, my point was I feel like the teams are on similar levels.
Maybe so. I still think that there's more upside with Houston once they start getting fully healthy. Can they somehow fix the scheming?
There's only one person.
That's a big part of their team. It's probably their second best player.
I mean, as a constructed right now, if you're going to tell me who's the bigger MVP, it looks like Nico Collins right now.
Right, listen, CJ Stroud, I think, maybe I'm wrong, that he's significantly better than Sam Darnold. And if we continue to go down this road, if they can figure out a way to either move the pocket, quicker routes, whatever it might be, and Nico comes back, I think they can solve a lot of the issues that they have offensively right now. Just on there are certain times that like Stroud drops back, and the moment he has time, just no one's open. And it's like, okay, this is great. And their play. I mean, if their offensive play calling can we just put KOC as the head coach of the Texans and move D'Amico Ryans to Minnesota?
Swap them?
I feel like
swap them.
Let's say we swap those two coaches. We'd have Houston like double the spot where we have Minnesota.
I was just about to say we'd probably have Houston with 2 more wins.
Yeah,
and then you would have Minnesota would probably be, what are they, 7-2, and probably be like 4-5.
This Minnesota team I find is very reminiscent to that team that lost to Daniel Jones in the first round 2 years ago.
That's fair. I mean, that's Sam Darnold's interceptions were all when he was looking at Justin Jefferson. Like, I get you want to throw it to Justin Jefferson, but hell, it was TJ Hawkinson was having no problems yesterday, so maybe use your other option. So Jordan Aston's still on the team, buddy.
Let's circle back to the top of this. Obviously, Green Bay coming off bye. Okay. We'll see where Love is at. And then I have the Chargers. The Chargers are just kind of sitting there at number 9. That's up from 11. Again, I kind of spoke about it in terms of their schedule that want to see them beat someone, and they have a chance at Cincinnati next week. And not that I have Cincinnati ranked on this tier. They're weirdly the most schizophrenic team going because they're another team that's only beat bad teams.
The Bengals?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've been competitive.
That's great. Great. They're keeping it close. They just lose every game. If they're in a game against a good team where they have a chance to win, they will lose. That's all they've done all year.
So then what's their schedule like the rest of the way?
They have it's tough. They're at the Chargers.
I should know this because I kept saying to sell high on Joe Burrow before, like when he came off the 5-touchdown game. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So they play the Broncos. I mean, they have the 2 games against the Steelers, which are huge for them. Like they could, like I have the Steelers at number 5 right now. I don't know what to make of the Steelers because they should have lost to Washington. like when you Kevin Cole does a really good like adjusted score, and there were a few of them that were a bit off. There were 3 teams that won that like per the numbers and per the expectation really should not have, and Washington Pittsburgh was that one. The adjusted score I think for that game was 25-22, which when you play in the margins that closely that any team can kind of win, felt like Pittsburgh got kind of lucky in that game to beat the Commanders, especially when you jump offside on the 4th down. I know it was a rookie who ended up doing it, but like that's why Russell Wilson's a better quarterback for this team than Justin Fields is. That play right there.
You're 100% right. And then also to go back to this game as well, though, but like you kind of brought this up with the Commanders before, is like they keep playing this and they're going to get got, and they got by a good team, but Noah Brown,
Drops.
what the hell? Diami Brown, what the hell? Like legitimately, I mean, they could have had 2 more touchdowns on the day, at least 10 more points on the day. So yeah, like if you watch that, I know you did, I meant for like the public, if you watch that game, this kind of goes back to your kind of conversation about the 49ers. It felt like I'm watching the Commanders win a game, like not stomp them, but like watching that entirety of the game. It was like the Commanders feel like the better team, and it was just mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake that just kind of ruined things. So I'm with you. I think they both deserve to be on the same tier. You have them 3 spots from each other. If this is the same conversation in 4 weeks and they swap spots, but they're still on this tier, it wouldn't shock me.
No, me either. And I think that Pittsburgh recognized how good Washington's offense is by running a fake punt from their 15-yard line in the first quarter. They're like, we're not giving them the ball back. We're trying to steal a possession from Washington.
Yeah, and it's telling too. And when we get this week, Thursday Night Football, Eagles Commanders is going to be very telling.
So Philly's favored by 3.5 in that game, and I've been bad on Thursday Night Football. That's why I don't bet it anymore, just because I lose it every week. But I really like the Commanders against the spread.
I think a big part of it, I do, if 2 things. One is it's in Philly, as people should know, but the part is like I do think they are a better and different team with Brian Robinson. Like I know they had a fine time yesterday with Eckler, but I think Brian Robinson just makes them complete, where if it's no Brian Robinson again, because it's a short week and then they see the extra time, I think they can win the game. I just don't. That's the line that I'm with you. Like I don't like Thursday Night Football in general, but I don't like it as much with not knowing what's going on with Brian Robinson.
And Philly could be a house of cards as well. It's really difficult to determine because we feel like, they've rattled off these 5 straight wins. They've blown out some teams. They've looked really good, but I don't know. They still seem a bit anemic at times. And it's difficult this year because I pointed this out a few times with, they're only beating the bad teams and losing to the good teams. But there's so many bad teams that it's kind of the case for a lot of teams right now. But they beat the Packers week 1 in Brazil in a really weird game, and they won 34-29. That was a close game. They lose to the Falcons, who are on close enough to them. I think they're better than the Falcons. They lose that game because Barkley drops a catch. That's 22-21. The Saints, when they were still like, okay, they just squeak by them in week 3, 15-12. Then they get smoked by the Buccaneers, 33-16. Then they barely beat the Browns, kill the Giants, kill the Bengals. That's a decent win. Barely beat the Jags and kill the Cowboys. Like, those aren't impressive wins, really.
No, but the argument we've had in past weeks when I brought up the Eagles is that kind of they haven't had a lot going right so far in offense. Is like missing A.J. Brown, missing Devonta Smith, and then any given week, it's like just yesterday, they didn't even need to do much, but Devonta Smith was basically a non-factor as A.J. Brown, Barkley to a degree because also didn't need to do a lot, but Dallas Goedert. I kind of feel like that's my argument for the Eagles is that they haven't even needed everything yet to beat the teams they should beat. You're not wrong about that, but that I don't want to say they're the Chiefs where they could just flip the switch. I don't think it's that easy, but I feel like if the Eagles do flip the switch and hit at like 95% instead of this 80% rate, they are still one of the best teams because more so the fact is this defense, I've said it time and again, the defense is starting to come around because you have rookie corners that are starting to get to their talent level. Like Quinion Mitchell's playing great football. Their secondary is playing really good. It's not the best in the league by far, but at the beginning of the year, we started at, it was one of the worst. And that's because they had a lot of rookies and young players and pieces that haven't been together. And now they're playing a good secondary and they can still get pressure. So I just think that as a team, that was my argument to go all the way back. Is that why I think the Eagles are in the conversation for me, at least?
Listen, I hope you're right. I only made 2 preseason bets, and it was Chiefs over Eagles in Super Bowl and Eagles over Chiefs in Super Bowl. That's it. So I really need these teams to get to the Super Bowl.
I hope you're wrong for personals, so like my Super Bowl picks, but yeah, go right ahead for you.
Yeah, well, I want to cash either a 50-1 or a 66-1 on those. Just those were the two teams.
Mine's looking really rough right now. I went Texans Lions.
I mean, Lions isn't looking bad. I just want to briefly hit on Washington for a second. I'm excited for that Thursday night game. But one thing I think that we do overlook with Washington, because it was going so well for so many games, is a lot of the same problems that we identified them coming into the year. So we were wrong about their offensive line, or at least how Cliff Kingsbury is utilizing their offensive line and getting the ball out quickly and moving Daniels around where the pressure isn't as big of a deal. We saw it crop up a little bit against Pittsburgh, who was just kind of getting to him. The defensive line has been excellent, and maybe this defense looks a little bit better when Latimer is healthy and St. Juste isn't required to go defend Mike Williams and not have any success whatsoever. Just moving him off primary coverage is going to be a good thing for that defense. But we kind of spoke about the offensive weapons, like McLaurin's good, and then they have no one. It turns out they kind of have no one after him.
Well, they have no one after them that's at least consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, Noah Brown, like he's done, but at the same time, he makes mistakes. At least not perfect. He's not a number 2. He needs to be number 3, like he was with the Texans.
Well, maybe it's because he has sure hands and he runs the right routes and you know what you're going to get out of Zach Ertz, but I'm stunned they haven't gone to the rookie or Bates or someone for just an extra dimension in that offense.
I think that's the issue, though, is like, what does Sanat bring that Ertz doesn't do? Like, he's a little bit more explosive, but it's not like we're not talking athleticism up there with like Kyle Pitts.
No, but I think that even your league average athleticism versus Zach Ertz at this point of his
versus
career
Zach Ertz
is like a significant gap.
Did you see that yesterday when they posted that he passed for the all-time, but it got cut off and they had to like redo it, and originally it said Zach Ertz and it was 763 or whatever has passed. And somebody, I forget who it was, but one of the people that is in the industry with us is like, damn, I knew he was old, but come on.
We're at the time of year where people are going to ask you what you want for a gift, and you're going to say, I don't want anything, or I don't know. Here's an answer. Doer. My Doer pants I got last week are the most comfortable pieces of clothing that I own. I got a pair of denim stretch jeans and these joggers. These joggers are amazing. You get them in a whole bunch of colors, but they don't look like joggers. So when you go out into public, I mean, we would wear crappy jogging pants out in public because they're so comfortable all the time, but then people see you're like, who is this absolute goober walking around in his joggers wearing his pajamas? No. The Doer joggers look so good. They are lightweight, they are stylish, they are relaxed, and beyond anything, they, again, are the most comfortable things I own. I wore them like 3 days in a row, which is a lot for a pair of pants. I absolutely love my Doers, and I know you're going to love them too. Check out Doer's flagship stores in LA or Denver, or shop online at shopdoer.com/PME. Right now, here's the thing. My listeners, you good people, listening to the Pat Mayo Experience, get 20% off your first purchase when you use my exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/PME. This is an awesome deal. Don't wait. Go get 20% off right now at shopdoer.com/PME. Let's go down to tier number 4. It's a little mini tier of Arizona, Minnesota, and Atlanta. I kept Cincinnati off this tier because, like I said, they need to beat someone for real, and they can beat someone for real this week on Sunday Night Football. Arizona, I find to be very confusing, but we were kind of having this discussion on Sunday Night Live on the PME, which you can go back, rewind, hit on the pod feed, sub to Mayo Media Network, and go like that episode as well. We did a Diet Coke challenge with Cuss. He was drinking 7 separate types of Diet Coke live on the show.
And what, like to taste the differences, or just to down all of them and not have to go to the bathroom?
No, just to see if he could identify what receptacle they were coming out of, whether it was fountain Diet Coke or bottle Diet Coke or canned Diet Coke. He went 0 for 7.
Wow. I was about to say he probably got at least 3 or 4 right, but damn.
Yeah, in the interest of time, we had to speed it up, so you're supposed to allow him to taste all of them first and then go through it, but we didn't have time for that.
I thought you at least get the fountain one. The fountain has such originality.
He guessed fountain for all of them until we got to fountain. Then he didn't guess fountain.
That is so Tim.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
So this is where the Goff conversation came up because he was so scared of Kyler Murray against the Jets. He was artificially propping up Kyler Murray as being this great quarterback. So when the Jets lost to Arizona, that's what he could point to. All right, we got beat by an elite guy because you know how his brain worked. But Kyler's been awesome over the past 4 weeks or so. If you had to rank the NFC quarterbacks right now, because all the good quarterbacks are in the AFC. In the NFC, who are the 5 best quarterbacks, real-life quarterbacks?
In the NFC?
Yeah. For just this year, not looking forward. Like, as of today, who would you want as your quarterback in the NFC? Like, Hurts, maybe?
Hurts,
like,
Daniels, Love.
I don't know about Love, man. Love is kind of like Jay
I do,
Cutler.
because it's just
Love is
just
kind
a
of
health.
Love is kind of like Jay Cutler.
No, I think a lot of it has to do with health.
I don't. Like, Jordan Love had a great 6-week stretch to end last year. Other than that, this is the guy he's been.
He's been also inconsistent for health this year. I think the health at the beginning of the season and also the wide receivers not being healthy. Like, again, I actually think he's better. Jay Cutler plus. I think he's better. I see the similarities you're going for there, but again, you asked me for the top 5. Purdy would probably honestly be number 2 with how he's played this year. So
do you know who the best quarterback in the NFC is?
Purdy?
Matt Stafford.
And so that was going to be my 5th.
I think he's still the best.
I
think if I was trying to win a Super Bowl with whatever best constructed team, I mean, Daniels could pass him because he's an unknown, but we know what Stafford is and we know how good he is.
And you would take him over Hurts?
Yeah, I would.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't go that far. I could get with you over Love, 100%. I still I think it's about time where I know we've had this discussion before, but you tell me Purdy straight up the way that he's been playing this year with that team you could construct a freaking team of great wide receivers in the past 10 years just from the 49ers and Buccaneers alone from their injuries. And what Purdy's been doing with no Christian McCaffrey for the entire year, and then Ayuk being hurt, and then hurt for the year, Debo being hurt and not healthy. I would honestly, if you wanted to start the conversation with Purdy, I wouldn't oppose.
No, but I think that you can make a pretty compelling case that Baker and Cousins are about as good as Purdy.
No, I wouldn't.
I would.
Completely different tier.
No, not to me. Especially Cousins. Like we
have Cousins.
We have such a track record with him that you know that the bad games come. It's funny but we did mention Goff once.
No, we didn't. But that's because Goff is in the tier with Cousins. Like, you want to tell me again? I said like old Cousins. You tell me old Cousins. Sure, he's not old Cousins anymore. Pretty a complete tier over those two.
Gino's also quite good. But I think this is also a situation.
Gino's in the Cousins group.
Yeah, and like he's kind of boom or bust. But we've seen some bad Purdy this year too. I just wonder if you take Kyle Shanahan away from that team and you put Purdy on any of these other teams, what does he look like? It's sort of that if we swapped Miko Ryans and KOC, how much
Kevin
better
O'Connell?
how much better Houston would be versus how much worse likely that the Vikings would be. That if you just put Purdy on, I don't know, the Falcons, would the Falcons be better? I don't know.
I think they'd be slightly better for the inconsistencies of Cousins this year, but you also picked a team that isn't too dissimilar. I honestly agree with your overall thought, though, and I've said this time before as somebody who's arguing for Purdy right now, is that he's in the perfect fit. He's in the perfect Shanahan system fit for what Purdy can do and can't do. He does have his limitations. I'm not talking about him being a top 5 quarterback in the NFL or perfect by any stretch of the imagination. He does throw some off-target passes, but the good thing about Purdy and why this offense helps make up for it is off-target can still be catchable, and he's making catchable throws for the talent that he knows is around him. And when he's lost some of that talent, he's kind of stepped up a little bit. Again, he's not flawless. You brought it up. He's had some bad games, but just the play. You said this year.
Yeah.
And for this year, you want to talk about careers and we get to the playoffs and maybe Matt Stafford continues this run. Sure. But just this year specifically, I think there's a case that he's been the best quarterback in the NFC this year.
I don't know exactly how I would go 3, 4, 5. I don't know if that matters. For me, it's Stafford and Daniels, 1, 2. I'd rather have Daniels than Hurts. I think he's better.
Yeah, I'd rather have Hurts than both of them.
I just think Daniels does. Daniels is a much better thrower than Hurts is, especially on the deep ball.
But we knew that about Daniels.
Yeah, but Daniels is doing the other stuff as well now too. I think Hurts is a better runner than
you
Daniels.
just saw the issues.
We did, but I mean, it's not to say that Philly hasn't had its issues too. And it's not like
No.
Daniels is dealing with like the world's greatest. He doesn't have Devonta Smith to just not throw to because he has better options.
Look, you're coming for the person who had Daniels in the conversation as the best quarterback in this draft class and argued for him to be potentially top 6 or 7 in fantasy, which is still too low. Like, I don't disagree with you on Daniels. Still a rookie, still saw the problems yesterday with the limitations. This first game, the Steelers went out there and they played the Lamar Jackson defense, and it destroyed Daniels. He didn't run for any yards. He couldn't get much working in the passing game. And we already made the apologies. Even if he gets some of those throws, that was the worst game, unquestionably, by Daniels so far as a rookie. Has the talent to come back, has the talent to learn specifically from that, to go super nerd on you. This is like the Saiyans in Dragon Ball Z. He got beat down. He's going to come back and learn everything, and he's perfect now going forward. He's the next level. He's going to be Super Daniels going forward. I just nerded out for you.
Are you allowed to make those sorts of references if you don't live in your mom's basement?
Wait, you don't think this is my mom's basement?
That's true. It is, yeah. That makes sense. Your childhood basement.
Yes, still here. She's bringing me peanut butter and jelly with the crust cut off.
Your wife moved into your mom's basement with you?
Yes. It's actually my mom's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday to Jake's mom.
Thank you. She's on that nice number. Next year is 70.
Yeah, so just hit the ceiling and be like, "Get the meatloaf, Mom!"
Happy birthday, Mom!
Jake doesn't live at home, for people who need to know.
I don't care what people think.
That's fair. I'm sorry to have interrupted your point. I wanted to go off on a little tangent and get us to the next tier, because that was the whole point of...
we need to get to it.
Cincinnati, the Rams, Denver, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. I kind of laid out the case already for Tampa Bay of why I like them the rest of the season. I might give it on the bye week as well. Although maybe I won't, because if Atlanta loses, then those odds are going to drop. We'll end up seeing here. Denver, they kind of feel like they can hang, but against a really good offense, they seem to crumble. Like, that's what we saw against Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, they have the ability to take away a certain dimension of your offense, be it through pressure. They can stuff the run, they can stop the pass, but they can't do all of it at one time. And when you play a team like the Ravens, like, they're good in all of those things. So it's like, all right, you want to take away the intermediate passing, we'll go deep, or we'll run the ball on you. Like, they're just... And that's a bad matchup. But against Kansas City,
right,
you saw how their defense can be really good. And it's not that Kansas City is a one-dimensional offense. It's just they're not really great at anything right now.
No, and they were able to exploit him a little bit with Kareem Hunt, and you saw that at times. But Hopkins limited in that game, which goodbye low in fantasy if we're going to talk about that. But you're not wrong, is that the Broncos just feel like this is better than anybody could have expected for this year and hope for the future. But the biggest thing is I still think the clearest example of not trusting the Broncos is I think Sean Payton's still figuring out this team himself, because who led the backfield? Audric Estime. Is that for the rest of the season? Maybe. Is it Jaleel McLaughlin next week, because Sean Payton's still going out there and being like, maybe this works. Maybe this works. Maybe it's Troy Franklin this week. And no more Troy Franklin after that, because we're going to go back to Devon Vele. Like, I think he's still figuring this team out and what works and doesn't.
Seattle, I'm kind of done with them. Like, if you told me they made the playoffs, I wouldn't be like super shocked, but every time they play outdoors, they suck, and they play home games outdoors.
I know, you're keeping this.
But it's a real thing. Just go look at the numbers.
No, I'm just saying you keep bringing that up. I actually referenced that point that you brought up on the Friday show on Sirius XM. I gave you credit for that and brought that up. I was, you know what the thing was, though, is when you pulled up this tier, I was actually going to kick out Jordan Love for Baker Mayfield. I wasn't even thinking about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has played as the top 5 quarterback in the NFC this year.
Yeah, I think I brought him up as like a part of the fringe of like the top 5 guy. Like, are the Lions better with Baker or Goff?
Ooh, Baker.
See, I think, and this is the hard part about Goff, because Gariam pointed out with Goff that he's basically the best case scenario of Tua, where it's actually helpful that he's not that good, because he generally understands his limitations, and they have so much skill, and especially with their offensive line, their ability to run the ball and the playmakers that they have, that he just kind of needs to be one of those like old school NBA point guards that never shoots, that he's just distributing at all times, and maybe he needs to make a free throw or two.
Steve Nash?
No, because Nash could score at the same time. Like, he could drive the lane.
Okay.
Like, if you have to rely on Goff to get you down the field based on anything he's going to do, like, what we saw wasn't so much that the pressure was affecting Goff, and even with the adjustment adjustments that they made, they were able to keep him in the pocket a little bit better. Is that the moment he can't step up, the moment he has to move and make a throw, he doesn't have the arm strength to do it like some of these other guys. Like, that's always the Stafford thing. Like, no matter what weird position that he's in, he can still make every throw. Like, that's never an issue. With Goff, he starts throwing those floaters, and then they get picked. But when he can step into the ball and manage, maybe Tua, I mean, I put Tua on this tier, but the way that Detroit is currently constructed, Goff is like the good version of Trent Dilfer, although the Lions defense isn't as good as that.
I was going to say Eli Manning.
No, because Manning had the arm, right? Manning would make these stupid throws and people would come down with it.
He had it. He just could. No, he had the arm-ish, but he also couldn't land it within 20 yards. He's basically like, who's your driver version that can't putt in golf? Who's that?
That's basically everyone in golf now. But it is Scotty Scheffler.
Thank you for taking my. Okay, thank you for taking my example, throwing it out the window.
Well, the old adage of golf of drive for show, putt for dough. The moment analytics became a thing, turned out the exact opposite was true.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, when all of the best players in golf are guys who can't putt, the putt for dough thing doesn't really come true.
Nobody cares at that point.
Yeah, when you just hit it to 5 feet every time, it doesn't really matter how you putt.
I was also going to say, like, if you can get there in 2 versus 3, it's okay, fine. You make it up. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and that's what they found out was the most important thing in golf.
Well, and that's why I can't break 80, or I even can't get to 80 anymore like I did in college, because I have an amazing short game. My long game is trash. I have no power.
And I'm the opposite. I reworked my swing to get distance.
Oh, so best ball.
Yeah.
You and I should be a best ball team.
Can't putt, can't really chip, but I can fucking bomb it and hit irons.
Oh, I'm the chip master. I don't know where it came from, but I can chip like a beast.
There we go. I like that. Anyway, to kind of circle back here with Goff, that he is a good distributor in this offense to get everyone involved, make it go. He's cerebral, he's smart, and when not pressed, he makes really good decisions all the time. The issue comes when he's under a little bit of duress that he's trying to make the right decision, but his body just can't keep up with it. Like, there was even a pass in the Buffalo game where there's only a few like Mahomes is the king of this. Stafford's really good at it, but Allen I forget who he was throwing to. I think it was Curtis Samuel. And he had him like going down the sidelines. Josh Allen didn't play a good game against Indianapolis. Didn't have to. But two hands went up and another hand went up in his face the moment he was about to come through. And he just completely changed his arm angle halfway through the throw to throw around the sidearm and throw a fucking 40-yard bullet.
Yeah.
Like, Goff can't do that.
No, and he never can. But that's why to go back to the Baker discussion on this team is I think the way that he's been playing, and that I'm not saying he's going to be pulling a Josh Allen like that, but you've seen him, I mean, mid-play, like, you can see the process that's going through Baker's mind. Like, it's not the Baker where everything was just erratic and scrambling and I don't know, it's more comfortable. He was pressing with Cleveland, whatever it might be. It's just, you see that like, oh my God, this is falling apart over here where I'm supposed to be looking. I'll just dump it off to the backfield. Or look, Kate Otton's going to come up and up the middle, and he's anticipating windows too. So that's why I would go Baker over Goff for this whole discussion.
It's funny because the Lions are a weird team because of that. And be it like that sort of level of quarterback, I do think that Goff is a better fit for Detroit because Baker, and there's a few other guys like this, Geno would be another one. Goff never really tries the tight window throw. Like, I mean, one game, it's one game. Everyone has a bad game. But the rest of the season, what we've seen in his time for Detroit is like he's not actively ever killing you, where Baker might go win you some stuff, but he'll throw you out of it too. And you just can't have that if you're the Lions quarterback right now. You don't want the guy who's taking a lot of chances.
I don't think, because that's the thing, is I don't think Baker's doing that much this year. I don't think it's like he ever been. And why, to go back to this, is I see your argument, which is kind of why Sam Laporta has been non-existent until recent. It's just because he's like, I'm just not going to throw it. Like, I'm not going to throw it to anybody who's not even completely open. Like, if they're half covered, he's just like, I'm not going to do it. So I get your point there. I just think this year Baker's not doing that. He's not trying to force it into windows that aren't there at all.
You know who would have been a good QB, like based on what we've seen and the accuracy that he possesses? Like, Bo Nix would fit in very well on Detroit. and give them the
Because
added
everything's short.
everything's short.
Short to
They're like,
intermediate game.
yeah, short and intermediate throws. You have to throw a bomb or two to Jameson Williams per game to see if he ends up getting open. It's usually when he's wide open. But he would also give them the extra dimension of being able to use his legs too.
So the legs is because I was going to say everything you're saying so far makes it sound like even Derek Carr would be a good fit for the Lions.
I mean, I think that you could put Derek. I mean, I don't think Carr's as good as Goff, but I think that he's the sort of guy that could excel because I mean, this offensive line is so good; they give you time, and you saw I think you get so used to playing behind a really good offensive line, and I think this has happened to Dak too over the past few years. Is that they had an all-world O line for so long. And you get used to that. And it's hard to adjust when guys are starting to get in your face all of a sudden. Like everything that you normally do that you're used to doing, that muscle memory, all of a sudden needs to be changed.
So basically, Kyler Murray would be a top 5 quarterback, period, on this offensive line and this team.
I actually think their offensive line's been pretty good this year. I think that's been a crutch.
It's been pretty good.
And maybe that's why maybe that's why he's been better.
Well, it's the difference of what you're seeing a little bit too yesterday when the Giants weren't getting a ton. They still got some pressure against Bryce Young.
Okay, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to fucking hear Bryce Young was good in the Munich game. He had like a good drive and a half. That was it. And he was terrible the rest of the time.
I did not say he was good. I said what you see, the throws he was able to make does not make the entire game good. My point being is the throws and the opportunities he had was because they had the lanes and he stepped up into some of them, which is what Kyler Murray does. Is he is short. He needs to step up and find lanes because if you just have a pocket over top of you like this, you're not going to see because you're a foot shorter. You have to, the offensive line has to kind of almost spread out to give you lanes. And that's why you see this. It's called like the techniques that you see with the offensive linemen is instead of just pushing guys and holding the pocket, they actually try to push to one side. That's what Carolina needs to do. If Bryce Young has any hope to see what he did in that game, I would say it was probably 1/3 of that game he actually played good. 1/3. I'm not going to say the entire game, but if you have any hope for him, that's what they need to do.
It's 2 weeks in a row their scripted plays have looked pretty good. Then after that, it's been terrible.
Because they're trying to do that. That's what I'm saying.
Well, this was another week like that adjusted score. Like if you looked at the adjusted score between the Giants and Carolina, I think it was like 30-15 for the Giants or something.
Yeah, that's because Daniel Jones is the quarterback.
Yeah, that's
congratulations, everybody.
That's a problem. Tier 6, Indy, Miami, the Jets, the Bears, Cleveland. I don't think Indy might make the playoffs, but they're terrible, man.
They are. But that's they just want to sell tickets and have some hope for this team.
Yeah, the Bears are sitting there. How has their offensive line somehow gotten worse over the past 3 weeks?
Because they're not playing cupcakes anymore.
I mean, they just played the Patriots, who I think had 7 total sacks the 7 previous weeks, and they had 9 against the Bears.
That was purely like watching that felt like just somebody had a game plan and the other team didn't. Like this comes down to how is Eberflus still a coach?
I completely agree with you, but you think during the offseason, like, hey, let's draft a wide receiver inside the top 10. Hey, let's trade for Keenan Allen. Let's get Caleb Williams, all these weapons. Couldn't have found an O-lineman instead of Keenan Allen who does nothing?
No, couldn't have found an answer. A head coach or offensive coordinator, like that was your answer of offensive coordinator. This is why, like you're not wrong about the offensive line being part of it too, but you've seen other teams. Washington talent wise, it's not like they unearthed this talent on the offensive line that nobody knew existed. They just do things what some coaches do better than others, as we've seen with a myriad of teams, and some coaches don't know how to do anything with the talent they have. You make the best of what you have. You say, this is my quarterback, this is my offensive line, this is my running back, this is what they do good, this is what they do bad. Let's maximize their ability. The Bears, for all intents and purposes, watching it is almost like their game plan is to do the opposite. This is what they do good. Let's throw that all out the window and make them do the things they can't.
When Miami,
it's like, you know what? It's like taking your whole thing with the point guard, like that can't shoot, and so like, no, you're going to be Steph Curry.
I like that. When Mike McDaniel gets fired by Miami this offseason and becomes the Bears coach, the Bears offense is going to be awesome next year.
I don't think McDaniel's getting fired.
I think he's getting fired. If I guess depends on who they can, if they can go and get like Vrabel, like I would like Mike McDaniel's a great fit in an offense like this because especially with a bad offensive line, like Miami's offensive line has sucked for 3 years, but you don't notice because he schemed the ball out quickly. That's all Washington's doing. It's not like it's not like
Exactly.
it's Jalen Daniels 7-step drop. Oh, he's stepping up. Oh, he has 5 seconds to throw. No, he's just getting the ball out quick.
That 100%. That's my entire point.
Yeah,
completely.
And that's why I think that he would be a great fit with the Bears.
I still don't think he's getting fired just because of what happened this year.
So nothing more on those kind of dead teams. We'll see where they go. This is where I wanted to get to, the final tier.
The dredge of the dredge?
Yeah, so I have New England, New Orleans, Las Vegas, the Giants,
Such a big tier.
Carolina, Dallas, Jacksonville, and Tennessee in this bottom tier. But here's what I wanted to do. Instead of like going through and talking about how terrible these teams are, with these, what are they, 8 teams that I have right now, I want to power rank, if you're a fan of these teams, how would you feel about the future of these teams in order? It's gotta be New England number 1, right?
Yeah. That was actually going to be the first team I went to, yeah.
Who is number 2 in this conversation is the question.
Jaguars.
I actually weirdly think it's the Giants. Because if they get a real quarterback, I feel like they could be good right away.
That's why I can't. Because I don't trust them to get a real here. Like 2 things are going to happen. One is they're going to win themselves out of the draft, getting Sanders' ward, as I've said time and time again. Because this is why I gave up on the Giants, because I can't do this anymore. Is they ruin their own draft potential, and I know the players are going to. It's tongue in cheek when I say this. I did the podcast, and this with D'Angelo Williams, and he said tanking is never going to happen, because even if you got the front office to agree, the head coaches to agree with the front office and do it, say, hey, you're safe, we are going to tank. The players are still going to play for their career, so it's never going to happen. So it's tongue in cheek. But all that being said, is the Giants probably win themselves out of it, and even if they are there, the problem is I don't trust Mara, similar to Jerry Jones, to let Sheen go get Ward or Sanders. He has this idea of getting the next Manning. Like if you told Mara and the Giants, you could be like, hey, guess what? We can guarantee that, 2 years from now, you get Arch Manning just for whatever. They'd be like, oh, let's go figure out somebody else at quarterback until we can go get him. So that's why I don't trust the Giants, because I don't trust the organization to have the team around that needs to be there.
Okay, so if it's not the Giants, does Vegas have any hope? Because
if they get a quarterback,
you say it's Jacksonville. They already have a quarterback, and they're currently scheduled to pick first overall again this year for the 3rd time in 5 years.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is I think there's so many injuries up and down this team.
Maybe throwing it out here. Maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't that good.
Oh, we know that at this point.
Well, maybe they need a quarterback.
No, because you can still do things with a quarterback that's middle of the road. I mean, hell, we've seen that before. We're just talking about all the previous Super Bowls before the Chiefs. And then take out the Chiefs and Brady and look at the quarterbacks. None of them, it's not like Will Hart's, but, Stafford, but is Stafford top 5?
Stafford's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, but is Stafford feels like a Hall of Fame quarterback along the lines of an Eli Manning?
No, he's better than Manning.
I agree, but it's kind of like that same tier in my classification. It's more of the career. I mean, Stafford has a 7-year career. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No, but he didn't have a 7. I mean, Stafford basically every year he's been healthy in the league has been a top 10 quarterback. And some years he's been a top 5, top 3 quarterback earlier on, and even into his twilight. I feel like he's weirdly if he doesn't win the Super Bowl, people will treat him like he's Phillip Rivers, but he's better than that, and he gets the Super Bowl. If we think about top 10 quarterbacks of all time, he's not in there, but he's a name that you throw out in honorable mentions, where you wouldn't do that with Eli Manning.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Okay.
I can be convinced of things. Let's get back to this list. I gotta go meet my mom for lunch. I gotta go. She's gotta go downstairs and drive me to lunch for her. Let's get back to this list. All right. So I agree. You talked me out of Jaguars. Could pull the list back up because I was looking at it as we go. So if you're gonna talk quarterbacks, I think the Raiders are there because if they get a quarterback, this team already has some weapons. But my concern about the Raiders of why I wouldn't is because why I thought they should trade away Jacoby Myers is that this roster's kind of that Chicago Bulls of the NBA. There's pieces to contend, but there's too many pieces that aren't. And it's they kind of need to do the full blow up, but they're trying to keep the toe in the water. So I would actually say you give the Titans with their defense all around a quarterback. You give them Ward or Sanders. I think the Titans are the second in this tier.
So I would go the Patriots, the Giants, and the Titans. I know you have your scar tissue with the Giants, so that would be a little bit more difficult with you. Who is the bottom? Is it New Orleans or Dallas?
Saints. because there's nothing you can do with that roster. The contracts on that roster still for next year. You're going to have Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, and the end.
Carolina's in pretty rough shape too. I know they're completely injured, but they just don't have any good players.
I think actually they do. They do actually in the secondary, and they have some offensive talent. The problem is the two areas that they're weakest in, offensive and defensive line.
That's not good, especially when your quarterback's not that good.
No, so I would take the Raiders over them for that reason. But yeah, the Saints are dead last. At this point, are the Cowboys second to last?
I guess so. I guess if Dak comes back next year healthy, like, do they have more cap flexibility next year?
I don't know. I can pull it up while you're talking about that.
They just need to fix their offensive line. If they fix their offensive line, I feel like they would be fine.
They need more weapons, though.
Yeah, but you can find weapons somewhere. But one of the main reasons that they're not able to do anything offensively is they legit can't run at all. And yeah, I get that their running backs are kind of washed and terrible. Like, Dowdle's not bad. But if you put any of these, we saw Zeke wasn't washed last year on a Patriots team that utilized him somewhat properly. I get that it's a year after, but it's just showing you how bad this Cowboys O-line is, even compared to the crappy New England O-line from last year. Like, this is the real problem.
Yeah, and to that, they're 23rd in cap for next year's space. So they have some, but they don't have a ton.
And they have Mingo now too, so watch out.
Oh yeah, it's a good deal. Wonderful deal.
For sure. Well, we'll let you get to your mom's birthday. Thank you for joining the show. You can find all of the updated power rankings in the show notes in the Mayo Media newsletter. All the fantasy pickups, the underdog plays, the injury report, all the team notes are in there as well. What do you got going on this week?
Same as always, the podcast Tuesdays, Wednesdays, alongside the waivers and ranks Tuesdays and Wednesdays. By the way, holy crap. You talk about another notch in the thing for the Patriots, the most cap space next year, $137 million of cap space next year.
It's not that the Patriots are going to be good anytime. I don't even know if Drake May is good. He just seems like he could be good. And that's like the whole, out of all the teams.
Well, you said hope.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with the hope that we hope he looks like he could be the answer, at least a quarterback for the foreseeable future. And outside of Lawrence, who we just kind of said kind of sucks, they're the only team on that tier who has that.
And look, Tennessee is the third youngest team, and the Saints are the fifth oldest team in the league.
That's good. That's smart.
Even more reason.
Very good stuff. Saints are good.
All right, sorry.
Good team.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Smash likes over to the channel.
Mom, let's go.
Code Mayo at Underdog to get yourself that deposit bonus and a free pick. If you haven't done it, I don't know how much hotter we can get or how much longer this is going to last, but if there's a time to get in, it was probably 2 weeks ago, but now could still be a good time too. Start cashing some Underdog winners. All right, I'll be back with Cust and Jeff on the Spread Show for football and a golf show coming on Tuesday, all on the Pat Mayo Experience. All right, I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!